Tens of thousands of people each day are turning women away from abortion. How exactly do they do it? Find out next on Defending Life. Hello, I'm Janet Morana, Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to our Defending Life program. And today I'm joined by one of our priest associates, Father Scott Daniels. Welcome to our program, Father Scott.
Thank you, Janet.
Well, as always, we'd like to begin our program with prayer. And we have the Pro-Life Reflections for Every Day written by Father Frank Pavone and available at Priests for Life. The viewers can contact us to receive this beautiful prayer book. Today's reflection comes from the scripture in Genesis 3. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. Life is victorious over death. This is one of Scripture's most basic themes. The victory of life is foretold in the promise that the head of the serpent, through whom death entered the world, would be crushed. The promise is fulfilled when a mother, Mary, gives birth to a child Christ, who destroys death.
Let us pray. Lord, renew my confidence today that your promise to us will continue to be fulfilled as your kingdom of life grows in the world. Amen.
Amen. Well, today we're going to delve into pregnancy centers and how they operate, and people get a deeper understanding. And we had an opportunity to have a good talk with Peggy Hartshorn, the president of Heartbeat International. Let's see what Peggy had to say.
I heard the Supreme Court decision announced on January 22nd, 1973, and I was driving down High Street in Columbus, Ohio, when I heard the decision, and it was such a shock. I had gone to college in California, and I knew that abortion was legal there, but somehow it was something that was happening out there and not where I'm from, which was Columbus, Ohio. So it was such a shock that I knew that God was calling me to try to do something to help. And so I knew that there was something called Right to Life. I don't exactly know why I knew that, but I looked in the phone book, found the Right to Life phone number, and called them and said, I want to volunteer. So that's how my husband and I got started. And then one of the first things that we did for Right to Life was actually we began to house pregnant girls in our home. They were calling the Right to Life office and looking for help. So in 1974, we started housing pregnant girls, and we did that for about 15 years. Many of those girls made adoption plans, and of course many of them single-parented, and we had girls who also got married. And so I learned early some of the feelings that women experience who have crisis pregnancies and how they struggle with that abortion decision, and then with the decision of what's the best plan for themselves and for their child. So we learned all that because of our experience of housing the pregnant girls in our home, and we believed that God was calling us eventually. We made a marriage encounter weekend, my husband and I did, in 1978. And they ask you on a marriage encounter weekend to choose a couple ministry, a couple apostolate. And we wrote a little letter to each other, each of us saying we thought we needed to start a pregnancy help center in Columbus, Ohio. So that was the beginning of our pregnancy center there, which opened on January 22nd, 1981. We called it Pregnancy Distress Center, and now it's Pregnancy Decision Health Centers, one of the largest groups of pregnancy centers in the country. So from that experience, I really learned from scratch how to start and strengthen and build a pregnancy help center, and got involved with our parent organization, you might say, our umbrella organization, which at that time was called Alternatives to Abortion International. And now we call it Heartbeat International. And eventually, I ended up becoming president of Heartbeat International in 1993. So my husband and I really moved from the Right to Life part of the movement into what we call the service arm of the pro-life movement, the Pregnancy Help Center movement. And I received another call, really, in fall of 1992, right at the time of Bill Clinton's election. And many of us in the pro-life movement thought at that point that we would never be able to make much progress in the legislative, political, arena. We never thought we would get another Supreme Court justice who would look at this issue of abortion in an objective way and in relation to our Constitution and the founders. And so many of us in the alternatives to abortion, part of the movement, thought this is our time to step up to the plate. We've got to do the most we possibly can in helping women and helping to save their babies and reuniting families in the service arm of the pro-life movement. So in 1993, I committed to become president of Heartbeat International and try to build the Pregnancy Center Network, not just in the United States, but around the world. And so that's what I've been doing ever since then. What we try to do in the pregnancy centers, and this is what Heartbeat International teaches, is what we call the love approach. It's from 1 Corinthians 13, St. Paul's hymn to love, sometimes called, which says, really, the greatest of the virtues is love. And if we have not love, we come across as a noisy gong and a clanging cymbal. And love is patient, love is kind, love never fails. And so we try to teach that approach in working with and listening to a woman who has a crisis pregnancy. And so what we do when a woman calls us on the phone or comes into the center is we try to listen to her. We try to understand the feelings that she has, the pressures that she's under, what her values are, her thoughts, her wants, and her needs. That almost never does a woman really want to have an abortion. She feels alone, afraid, under a lot of pressure. She feels that her life as she knows it is going to come to an end if she has to have this baby. And that's the feeling that she comes to us with. And those are her thoughts. But what she really wants instinctively, because God planted that in a woman's heart, is to protect her child. And so when we're able to allow her to tell her story, and we're able to listen and learn what she's feeling, what she's thinking, what she wants, we're often able to listen as she herself comes to the conclusion that abortion is not the best alternative. And so at that point, we can talk to her about all of her options. You know, what are the facts about abortion as an option? How are abortions performed? What are the potential complications, physical and emotional and spiritual? And we try to focus on her because, you know, that's where she is at that point. She's not thinking about her baby. She's focused in on herself and her fears. And so we try to stay zeroed in on her as well at this point in our relationship. We listen and learn, and then we talk to her about all of her options. What else could she do besides abortion? What about her parenting options? Single parenting? What about marriage? What about the father of the child? Is marriage an option for her? What about adoption? What are her thoughts and feelings about that? And often women aren't interested in adoption very much in the beginning. The baby's not real enough to them at that particular point. As we continue in the relationship and throughout the pregnancy, we can introduce again that option of adoption. But that's the second step. Listen and learn, then introduce options, and then introduce a new vision and value, the V step. And you know, most women, when they come to a pregnancy center, feel very small. They feel embarrassed, ashamed. They may say, I should have known. How could I get pregnant? I know how not to get pregnant. Or why am I pregnant now at this point? And how could I have believed this guy? And now look what he's done. So they're feeling very bad about themselves. We need to introduce a new vision and value. You know, you are a special person. God created you in His image. And then there's the E step, extend and empower. How can we give her some action steps? How can we come along beside her? How can we, either at the pregnancy center or in partnership with some of the groups that we refer to and partner with in the community, how can we get along beside her and help her with the practical steps she needs to take in order to make a positive choice? And some of our pregnancy centers, of course, have medical services. Some of them have fatherhood programs where we can bring in the father of the child and try to get him involved. Some have parenting classes. Many of them have post-abortion healing programs, abortion recovery programs, and even sexual abuse recovery programs. So we can help her with all kinds of specific needs, both through programs at the pregnancy center, as well as with groups, churches, and other organizations in the community that we're networking with. pregnancy centers use a variety of kinds of volunteers. In fact, no matter what a person's gifts or skills or interests are, there's probably a place for them to volunteer in a pregnancy center. Sometimes people think, well, the best thing to do is to have a baby shower for the pregnancy center and provide baby items for the layettes and the programs that centers have, and that's a wonderful thing to do. But pregnancy centers need volunteers who are willing to be trained, for instance, in something like Heartbeat's Love Approach. How do we listen and learn with the clients? How do we introduce options and new vision and extend and empower? People can be trained to do that, regardless of their experience or background or education. We can use volunteers on our hotlines, in our offices working with clients. Many pregnancy centers have follow-up programs where they do parenting classes. They have mentoring programs, educational programs where they use volunteers. We can use lots of medical volunteers now in many of our pregnancy centers that are becoming medical clinics. We need nurses and ultrasonographers and medical personnel. We need people to serve on our boards who have business experience and nonprofit experience, fundraising experience, people to help with events who like to be out in the community and network. So regardless of what a person's gifts or skills are, we need prayer partners. I forgot to mention that. That's very, very important. Many pregnancy centers have prayer teams and networks that they send out prayer requests when they're working with clients. So regardless of a person's gifts or skills or educational background, we can probably use them at a local pregnancy center.
Well, we have a lot more to discuss about Peggy's conversation, and we're going to do that right after we take a break for these messages. Stay tuned.
Not until people saw images of children in coal mines did they enact child labor laws. Not until people saw images of human torture did they rise up against slavery. And now, after seeing these images, what will you do? Priests for Life, because America will never reject abortion unless America sees abortion. Call now to learn how you can help.
You are looking at the face of an unborn child, 25 and a half weeks into pregnancy. This child can be legally killed by abortion in America. As this ad from the Yellow Pages proves, some abortion clinics sell abortions up to 28 weeks. Abortion kills living children whose hearts are beating and whose bodily organs are all in place. Abortion. Haven't we gone too far?
Welcome back to our program, where we just heard from Peggy Hartshorn, the president of Heartbeat International. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about the work of the pregnancy centers. Well, Father Scott, as you know, pregnancy centers, they can go to this website, pregnancycenters.org, in case they're wondering where is the pregnancy center in their community. Put in your zip code, and they'll see where's the closest pregnancy center. And then, of course, we can say a lot about the priests, because I think, wouldn't you say, Father, in your travels, very often the priests don't know where the pregnancy centers are, correct?
Exactly. And you know, most of the trips I take, I will always visit a pregnancy center. That's scheduled into the itinerary. And I want to mention one particular venue that I visited in Chicago to sort of give the ideal pregnancy center that includes more than just giving away diapers or baby food or bottles. St. Jude's Chapel at the Women's Center in Northwest Chicago on Cicero Avenue, where I went a couple of years ago. It's the first time I'd ever visited a pregnancy center where there was a chapel, perpetual adoration 24/7. But you know, when I went there, I offered the Mass. I was the presider at the Mass. And then we took the Blessed Sacrament in procession down the street to the abortion mill. And like Joshua around the, you know, the walls of Jericho, we walked around slowly praying and adoring the Blessed Sacrament. And then we made our way back, had benediction. But I mention this because here they know that prayer, that Jesus Christ, the Mass, is really what's going to conquer abortion.
Well, and you think about the abortion-minded client now coming into that pregnancy center. Like Peggy said, they use that love approach, listen and learn, open options, vision and value, extend and empower. Well, having the Blessed Sacrament there and people praying while in the next room, women are being counseled to choose life for their child. It's very powerful because we know it's the Lord's grace that's going to pour through that counselor and reach that woman's heart and touch it and see that the pregnancy center is there, no matter what her need is to help her with it. And then when you said, that priests need to know where these centers are, I have an experience real quick. I was in the high desert in California. We went to the pregnancy center, and that next day we had an event with clergy. They didn't even know where their pregnancy center was. So we need our viewers to assist us in getting the word to their clergy so they get more involved with the pregnancy centers. Well, Father, we're going to take another break now, and when we come back, we're going to answer some questions from our viewers like you that have sent in to us, and we're going to give you more action you can take. So stay with us right after this break. Welcome back to our program, where now we are going to answer some questions that have been sent in by you, our viewers. Well, Father Scott, today's question comes from Jeff from Colorado, and he writes, how can we reach out to our local abortion doctors and encourage them to choose life? Are the centurions still around?
Thank you, Jeff, for your question. Yes, the Society of Centurions, which consists of former abortionists and other former workers in the abortion industry, is still around. It was established by Canadian psychiatrist Dr. Philip Ney, a longtime friend of Priest for Life. I should mention also that Joan Appleton, a former abortion clinic nurse who worked with centurions in the United States and was also a friend of Priest for Life, died in the summer of 2012. Priest for Life is now continuing the work of the centurions in the United States. Societyofcenturions.com is the website we operate both to extend healing to former abortionists and to help them to extend the invitation to practicing abortionists to leave the industry. The Centurions have brochures that can be handed out to clinic staff when we sidewalk counsel, also directly reaching out to them in kindness, prayerfulness, and a willingness to dialogue in a way that is respectful but does not compromise the truth can go a long way. Not everybody has the personality or skill to do this, but those who are so inclined can reach out to us for training and guidance. Another approach is to put out the word in the local community that those who do abortions will be exposed. The threat of this is enough to make some willing to stop, even before anything is actually done to expose them. Thanks again for contacting us about this and for your concern about the abortionists. Friends, anytime that you have a question or comment, please go to askfatherfrank.com and our team will respond to you.
Well, Father, that's very important. As we know, we have, the number keeps growing of the doctors who leave the abortion industry and come to the pro-life movement, come to Priest for Life, come for this Centurions program to get that healing. I mean, you have to imagine, they were responsible, some of them, for the death of thousands of children. Right. I think of people like Dr. Tony Levatino, who used to operate abortion practice. Actually, he would deliver babies one day and abort them the next. He was doing both, and he left the industry. I mean, Abby Johnson is another example. Yes. Here she was counseling women, even held the hand of a woman and saw the child aborted on a sonogram. But yet it was the faithfulness of the pro-lifers praying outside those abortion clinics, reaching out to these people and giving them those brochures, being that friend that, while they didn't condone what they were doing, they were there to say, we want to help you. You don't have to do this. Exactly. Come out. And at Priest for Life, we're continuing that work. I knew Joan Appleton very well. She herself was a convert. She was a former abortion clinic provider. As a matter of fact, she used to get all the pro-lifers, many of them arrested outside her clinic. And yet she had that conversion and change of heart. And she was responsible for bringing many of a clinic worker out of that abortion industry because of her own conversion and her own experience. And she knew they were captive to the enemy. So it's a marvelous program, and we want our viewers to contact us because we can bring these people, it's like saving souls, wouldn't you say, Father?
Exactly. And you can't forget the late, great Dr. Bernard Nathanson.
Absolutely. He's the shining example.
Exactly.
I mean, he was responsible for starting the whole abortion industry. He himself... NARAL. Yeah. I mean, and he aborted even his own child, and yet became pro-life and then converted to be Catholic. Matter of fact, Cardinal O'Connor baptized him into the Catholic Church. So the Lord's mercy and forgiveness is always here. But sometimes we, our view is we have to be those ambassadors on the front lines there.
Exactly.
And reach out for these souls that are thirsting to be saved. Let's just remember, as Father Frank says, you can't practice vice virtuously. Well, it's true. Well, while we're on this subject, let's talk a little bit too about healing resources for action, because the way we want them to reach out, to the clinic workers to get them out, we also want to continue to reach out for those who've had abortions. Everyone in we all know someone. After 40 years of abortion, we all know someone who's had one, and they're still hurting, and maybe they're away from the church. And I think being an ambassador to the healing message is very important. Starting with, they can contact us to get a Rachel's Vineyard brochure. And you yourself, Father, I know you've been on many of Rachel's Vineyard retreats.
I have. And I'll tell you, for those who criticize pro-lifers for being just for the baby, Rachel's Vineyard is proof positive, just as Silent No More Awareness campaign is, that no, we care about all people, the mother, the father, the child, the family. And there is no greater healing that I've experienced than what I've witnessed at Rachel's Vineyard, and the women who have for years held within the pain and the guilt. And for the first time, some for 40, 50 years, who've never spoken about this to anyone.
To anyone, that's what's so.
And to finally open up and realize there are other people who are,
feel the same way.
Or have the same experience as they do.
So. Well, and then maybe they don't know where the Rachel's Vineyard retreats are or other healing resources in their community. Well, at the silentnomooreawareness.org website, we have a beautiful search engine. They just have to type in their zip code, and what will come up is if there's a Rachel's Vineyard retreat program in their area, if there's Christian counselors, if there's a Bible study program, all of the resources for healing. It's a one-stop look. And if they can't remember silentnomooreawareness.org, we have a quicker URL that they can remember. It's called abortionforgiveness.com. Nice and easy to remember. Abortionforgiveness.com. And we want to bring healing to our wounded nation. Right, Father?
Amen.
Amen. Well, Father, thank you for such, again,
You're
another
welcome.
lively discussion. And brothers and sisters, we'd like to, ask you to get involved more. Help bring the healing that is so desperately needed to our nation. Go to our website and get those resources. In addition, I'd like to offer you can save someone's life today. This is chock full of healing information, pregnancy hotline numbers, and abortion information to educate your parish. We'll send it to you absolutely free of charge. Contact us at Priests for Life today. Thank you for joining us this week on Defending Life. Tune in next week for another exciting episode. And also look for me, also on the network, with the Catholic View for Women. Thank you, and God bless.